Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is facing increasing pressure to resign from office after the Finance Minister and one of his closest allies quit Cabinet. Chrystia Freeland resigned after reportedly clashing with the Prime Minister on the government's response to possible US tariffs and spending. The Finance Minister was set to deliver Canada's budget update, which will deliver a much higher deficit than anticipated. Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc was swiftly named as Ms Freeland's replacement, saying he will carry on her work in the portfolio.
Chrystia Freeland is somebody that I have worked with for well over a decade. She's somebody that I admire as a colleague, that I appreciate as a friend. I have a lot of confidence in the decisions our government, our cabinet has made, but will obviously do my job as Minister of Finance over the coming months.
The upheaval is shaping up to be Mr Trudeau's biggest political test since taking office. Approval ratings for the Prime Minister have dropped as low as 28% due to cost of living pressures and the country's migration programs. Local media is reporting 8 of his own party members have called for his resignation. Canada's Parliament is set to go on a winter break and won't return until the end of January. Joining us now from Ottawa is political analyst Lori Turnbull. Lori, thank you. Can Justin Trudeau's leadership survive this crisis?
It's really hard to see how that would happen, given the fact that we are close to an election, and many of the people in caucus, not half, but a good chunk of them, have indicated that they're hoping that the Prime Minister makes a decision to move on. He is a minority government Prime Minister, which means that even his own party is not enough for him to keep going as a Prime Minister. He needs the support of somebody else. Back in September, kind of late August, early September, the party that had been supporting the government indicated they did not want to do that anymore on a general basis. They wanted to move that to more ad hoc support. And so there have been a number of things that have made his legitimacy as Prime Minister, his hold on power, more difficult. And so now, with the resignation of his closest ally in cabinet, it's hard to see how he'll be able to navigate the situation for much longer.
Freeland's reason for quitting went to the tension with Trudeau and their different opinions on how to handle the economy and Donald Trump. Now, can you tell us to what extent is this the reasoning at face value, or was this an opportunity to remove Trudeau?
I mean, I think for her, she has been the finance minister for a few years now. I think she was really hoping to put down some fiscal guardrails with this fiscal update, because she has been accused of not doing that as much as she should. When COVID hit, there were lots of programs to be rolled out, lots of money was spent. They didn't tighten up that spending as quickly as some people wanted. I think there's been a lot of pressure on her to show that she is fiscally prudent. And especially given the threat of the tariffs from the United States, which would be devastating to Canada's economy, she wanted to rein in the spending. But at the same time, the Prime Minister had ideas about giving people a sales tax break during the holidays, sending workers a check for $250, and then there was possibility of expanding that program to even more people. This would have cost billions of dollars. And so I think there was a true, conflict and a true tension, and it went past the point of a healthy tension between the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, where they didn't see eye to eye. And I don't think the Finance Minister felt that she was able to do the job she wanted, given the fact that the Prime Minister had other ideas.
And going to those polls we mentioned a moment ago, I mean, he's under so much pressure. Why is he unpopular?
I mean, part of it, I think, is just that he's been there long enough that your political capital runs down if you're a political leader. And so he's been leader of the party since April of 2013. He's been Prime Minister since November of 2015. That's a while. That's a long enough time for people to start looking around for somebody else. But I also think that because of some unusual circumstances, some unprecedented circumstances with respect to COVID, for example, the government's handling of COVID-19 and the social distancing, the masking, the kinds of rules that they put in place at the time to try to flatten the curve and manage the spread of COVID. For some people, some people came out of that whole thing a lot better than other people. The people who could work from home, maintain their salaries, and actually save on some costs because they didn't have to travel to work, that population did so much better financially than the people who didn't have the choice to do those things. And I think what we can see now is some reflections in the Canadian population about what that whole period meant for them. There is a greater sense of polarization in Canada, which is unusual. There is a greater sense that not only Justin Trudeau, but also the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, who looks like he's about to become Prime Minister whenever we do have this election, both of those leaders are polarizing. Neither of them is the guy that everybody's really excited about. There's a real sense that now our population is kind of pulling in different directions publicly, which is unusual for Canada, I think, but also a sign that we've been, like everybody else, been through some difficult times. And I think that is borne on Justin Trudeau's popularity and his political capital.
And if he refuses to resign, can he be forced out by his party or the Parliament?
So, yes, but it's difficult. So he is in a minority position. So if he loses a confidence vote in the House of Commons, which could happen, he could be forced out. But at that point, it's difficult because not all the opposition parties want to go to election. And the one that has been supporting the Prime Minister and the Liberals, the New Democrats, they don't really have the money, or they're not totally election ready, and so they probably want to wait a little bit longer, even if it does mean that they have to manage the situation with the Prime Minister's lack of popularity. The other possibility is that the party somehow convinces him to leave, but we don't have the kind of mechanism that some other parliamentary systems do, where the caucus can have a vote on the leader, and if the caucus doesn't approve the leader, then the leader has to go. We don't have that. The Conservative Party here uses that mechanism, but the Liberal Party doesn't. And so it's very, very difficult for his party to really communicate this to him in a way that has teeth, because even as much as he's been there's been a lot of pressure on him to step aside, to reconsider, there really is nothing formal about it. But now that the finance minister has stepped aside, and again, she has been his closest ally this whole time, that might be a renewed pressure on him to think about what the next few days and weeks and months are going to look like.
And so as it stands, Canada waits till October for the election there, where the polls are pointing to a change of government.
Yes, exactly. And so that's a fixed election date. It's not binding. If the Prime Minister decides he wants to go before that, that's fine. I can't imagine that this scenario is going to play out until October. That's so long in the future, and given the leadership crisis that he's in right now, and the fact that he can't even really count on the support of his own party, I can't imagine that it's going to go that long. And the other opposition parties in the House of Commons have really stepped up in the past 24 hours, now that the finance minister has left, to say, if the Prime Minister doesn't remove himself, we will start taking more proactive ways to make that happen.
Political analyst Lori Turnbull joining us there from Ottawa. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.